Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the City of Palatka Community Redevelopment Agency Board meeting on May 18th, 2026. It's 5 p.m., and I'm calling the meeting to order, starting with the invocation led by Commissioner Campbell and the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mr. Deputy. Please stand if you're able.
Please bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for your grace. We thank you for your mercy. God, as we go throughout this meeting, God, we ask that you give us the knowledge, the wisdom, and the understanding to make sound decisions that will move this community forth. I ask that you cover every citizen within this community, and we pray these prayers and all other prayers in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Miss Amber? Oh, yes. Or somebody.
Annie Davis. Present. Sam Deputy.
Present.
Rufus Borum.
Present.
Robbie Carrera.
Present.
Josh Alexander.
He should be here shortly. He's on his way.
Justin Campbell.
Present.
We have quorum. Thank you. Has everybody had an opportunity to read the minutes from April 2026?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Thank you. I'm going to open the floor to public comments for items not specified on the agenda. If you have something that you would like to bring to the CRA Board's attention that is not on the agenda, please give your name and city of residence, and you have 3 minutes for your public comment. Is there anybody here for public comment? Seeing no one, close public comment. CRA District Representatives, is that you, Miss Nicole? Miss All?
That's just, in case any other representatives from any other districts showed up.
Okay, so it's a space for them, but there's nobody here, correct. On to regular business, Small Business Development Center, Mr. Paul.
Madam Mayor, Commissioners, staff, everybody else, I hope you're having a great day. Rick Paul, Small Business Development Center, 320 St. John's Avenue. In front of you, you should have a report from the SBDC that looks like this. It should say the City of Palatka up at the top right-hand corner, and it should say October 25th through March 26th. Now, there have been some major changes in this since the last time I brought it to you, and I'll go over those changes. But this is just for the zip code for the City of Palatka. This does not include others. Now, I've told you guys for about a year now that this change was coming. So if we look at this through this time period, 16 entrepreneurs consulted, 3 hours, 50,000 in increased sales, 2 business starts, 2 people hired, and $10,115 raised, which is fairly low compared to previous years. So let's talk about that. Last year I had anywhere from 10 to about 15 million in projects. What is a project? Well, that's when somebody comes to me and I get their business plan together, I get their performance together, I get their resumes together, all that sort of stuff, and then they're supposed to take them and submit them. This year I'm not quite to that level. We had more business last year. I'm currently at about just under $7 million for this year. Now, out of that, some of that's rolling over from the previous year because a lot of these projects take 2, 3, 4 years. I had one project take 4.5 years before it got up and running. However, there is it's not in the CRA, but just outside the CRA. I've got 2 clients that are in underwriting right now. One of them's for $1 million, another one's for about $3 million. Hopefully those will close and we'll see those on the finished side here pretty soon. The rest of the funds, a big chunk of it is actually for Putnam County, and then the rest is for surrounding counties. Next up, I'd like to talk about the workshops, because this says I've done 8 workshops in this time frame, but I don't think they include the workshops I just held or getting ready to hold. On March 3rd of this year, when I was still at office at the Chamber of Commerce, I had another lenders workshop. That's where we brought in all the lenders and the Small Business Administration, and we sat and we talked for about 2 hours about loans and how to help Putnam County and increase the SBA's impact for Putnam County and for Palatka, obviously. So that was very successful. On May 12th, I held my first workshop in the new office location, which is Palatka Office Share at 320 St. John's Avenue. Very cozy, had 9 people show up, and actually had 9 people register, so 100% attendance. Booty. Very cozy, and I was only going to go for an hour and ended up going almost 2 hours until people got tired out. And I think the reason is because it's such a cozy environment. If you've ever been by that 320 and kind of peeked inside, there's 2 tables and there's not that many chairs around, so everybody kind of had to pile in. But very good workshop. Nice people attending, and we've got a lot of information out. The next workshop, which you should have a flyer for in your, that I passed out just a few minutes ago. It's called Smarter Approach to Sales and Marketing. How about that for a title? This is a marketing workshop, and that's going to be held on June 9th, again at 320 St. John's Avenue, from 5:30 to 6:30. So please tell people to sign up for that and show up for that. And now, a couple other things. I redesigned the newsletter that I sent out, and I believe I sent the original newsletter out to everybody. I was trying to make it more interactive between the SPDC, the city, the county, and so forth. And so the first thing on the front cover was that the office has moved. The second thing was congratulations to Sunshine Real. I don't know if you realize it or not. They won the State of Florida Small Business Person of the Year award, which is pretty good stuff. And if you remember back a couple months ago, I was talking about, I wrote a story about him, and then Peter Willett from the Palatka Daily News put out a really good story on him. So, also, Small Business Week celebration, and there's like 2.5 pages for the city that was in here. We had some commercial space release, and then talking about more training workshops. So trying to get a little bit more feedback, or put a little bit more in the newsletter about the city and the county and upcoming events and so forth. All right, so last thing's up, basically in front of you, and I think I probably mentioned several times because I was really proud of the fact that
How are you?
really proud of the fact that one of my clients ended up in the Florida Trend magazine. So this is the Florida Trend magazine that the story ended up being in, and it's on page 31 if you look at the cover. Sunshine Rail Service. So I'm not sure who actually wrote that article. It wasn't me and it wasn't Peter, but there they are. And this is a Putnam County business that's growing very well. It's got good revenues and hired a good number of people and getting ready for a major expansion. There'll be up to 50 employees within a couple of years. The good news about this, even though I'm not crazy about the actual article that's in here, is that they shot a video. And so the videos go to the state SPDC offices and get shown around the whole state as well as the region and anybody that's looking to do business in Florida. So with that video, Sunshine Rail got pretty much international coverage because they do a very good job of shooting those videos. And that video will be shared at our annual conference in Fort Charlotte, excuse me. I think it's in August is when our annual conference is coming. So with that being said, kudos to Sunshine Rail and what they've done here, and I'm sure you guys probably have some questions for me.
Does anybody have any questions of Mr. Paul?
No, but I'd like to say thank you very much for making this Palatka focused and very easy to read and follow. I really appreciate your efforts.
Okay, thank you very much.
And one other question, are there opportunities you think we can continue garnering, or you think how you think we're doing here? We have opportunity?
Well, I came about 5 years ago, so I'm a pretty relative newcomer, right? And what I see is a heck of an increase in traffic, like what you guys see, especially on Reed Street. But I've seen a lot of improvements. And sometimes, you know, if you're here too much, I guess is the way to say it, or you're not paying attention, you don't really see the things going on. But I've got clients coming in looking to rent, you know, a place in the downtown sector. And so that's why I've always been very positive about trying to encourage the people that are buying the big buildings to fix them up, because we need the leasable space.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's very helpful.
Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Paul? Thank you.
Have a great day.
Ms. West, Sunshine Law presentation, informational
Yes.
only, no action requested.
Correct. Hello, Commissioners. This is a brief presentation on Florida Sunshine Law. You are receiving this presentation at the request of our city commissioners, who have asked for me to basically advise all of our sitting boards and committees about Florida Sunshine Law. So bear with me. I know that all of you have extensive training in sunshine, but I am going to go through this fairly quickly. So if you'll start the presentation, if that's at all possible, or you can follow along in your packet. I'm going to go ahead and get going while they figure out the PowerPoint. But basically, Florida's government in the Sunshine Law provides a right of access to governmental proceedings at both the state and local level. In the absence of a statutory exemption, it applies to any gathering, formal or informal, of 2 or more members of the same board to discuss some matter which will foreseeably come before that board for action, okay? So the boards that are subject to sunshine are any elected or appointed boards, such as yourselves, also advisory boards. And staff gatherings are not typically subject to sunshine. Your prohibited communications are basically, you may not engage in private discussions with each other about board business, either in person or by telephone, email, text, which has actually caught quite a few elected officials over the last several years, and also electronic communication, including social media and blog posts. So if you comment on a Facebook page, that is a public record. It is subject to public records requests. Also, you can, if you'll scroll down to, let's see, what slide is this? Slide number 5, please, where
That's
it's
it.
entitled Liaisons. And so while individual board members may not talk to other board members, you also cannot use a liaison in their place, right? You can't say, hey, Joe Smith, will you please go tell Sam Deputy that this is how I plan on voting at the upcoming CRA? And obviously, it's not going to be quite that direct. It might be a little bit vaguer, but the point is you cannot use a liaison to get your point across on a particular item that is coming up on the agenda. There are basically 3 requirements under Sunshine. All of our meetings must be open to the public. We must provide reasonable notice of such meetings, and that typically is a 48-hour time period unless there's an emergency, and the minutes of the meeting must be prepared and open to the public inspection. If you'll continue down, there are significant penalties for violating Sunshine, and if you've taken any ethics courses, I am sure they have put the fear of God in you regarding not only the civil actions that can be brought by other citizens, but also criminal penalties and suspension or removal from office. Public participation provides that basically we must allow for an opportunity for the public to be heard before the board takes official action on a proposition. So before you vote on any sort of ordinance or resolution, you need to hear from members of the public. Public records law. Basically, the scope of the Public Records Act is one of the broadest in the nation. We provide the right of access to the records of state and local governments, as well as to the records of private entities that are working on our behalf. So if we have, for example, a consulting firm that has drawn up plans, those are available to the public, because the taxpayers, if you think about it, they've paid for this, right? These are their documents and they are entitled to inspect them. In the absence of a statutory exemption, the public has a right to just about everything under the sun: documents, papers, letters, maps. But if you go down to the very end of this, it's regardless of the physical form, characteristics, or means of transmission. And those last few words capture just about anything. So that would include text communications, your social media posts, even a little heart emoji or a thumbs up emoji on someone's comment on a Facebook page can be theoretically used to show your disposition towards an upcoming agenda item. So you have to be really careful how you behave on social media when it comes to matters that are going to be coming before the CRA board. And finally, how does Palatka process our public records? The request is received, and it can be sent to anyone in the city. Miss Virginia Jones could get a public records request. Who knows? We send it to the clerk. The clerk acknowledges the request almost immediately, certainly within 24 hours, and then forwards that request to the appropriate department that might have those documents. If the request is really big, they will basically be informed of the expense that's going to be involved in producing those records before we take the staff time to produce them. The request is tracked by the clerk on a spreadsheet, and after the receipt of the documents, the clerk provides the same to the requester. So, do we have any questions from anyone on Sunshine?
Not a question as much as a comment or perception. So somebody's perception is their reality, and if they see a couple of people on the board chatting, they don't know if it's about something that may be coming up in the future on the board, or it's totally irrelevant. How do we try the best to address that so we don't get in those pickles?
Great question. You know, this is a small town, right? So you're going to run into people at Publix, people that may sit on this board. This is the advice that I would give. Just be mindful about an appearance of impropriety. If people see two elected officials or appointed officials talking, they may jump to quite possibly the wrong conclusion that you are talking about upcoming issues, right? So it will be incumbent upon you to clarify that if it comes up during a board meeting. But I would always caution, just be mindful about the appearance of impropriety, because the public is always going to jump to conclusions, and then it rests on us to clean that up, and that's not always so fun.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner.
Just for a point of clarity, also, weren't there some recent changes made to the Sunshine Law that an ethics investigation could not be started unless you have a documented ethics complaint similar to what you would have in zoning and codes enforcement with the complainant's name and information on that?
That
So
is
you can't just file anonymous requests anymore.
That is correct.
You have
I
to put your
believe
name
that
on it,
was
and it has to be
October.
firsthand information. It cannot be hearsay. You have to be public during the statement or have documented digital or physical evidence of the violation.
That's right. And you're talking about ethical complaints to the Commission on Ethics, and basically, no, those cannot be anonymous. It's quite a rigorous process, but you're absolutely right. Those cannot be anonymous complaints, and also they cannot be brought by a government.
Correct. And I think that was done just to prevent frivolous suits that were brought forth, maybe as paybacks perhaps, or something like that. But actually, it's a lengthy process now to go through this.
It is.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. CRA landscaping and maintenance, budget status and planning discussion, Ms. Orth?
Madam Mayor,
Yes?
I just wanted to acknowledge that I am attending.
Oh, you
this
are
meeting
here,
through
okay. Okay, Commissioner Jones is Zooming with us. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. This first staff report is in reference to the landscaping up and down St. John's Avenue. I know there's been some lengthy conversation about the landscaping, so I just wanted to provide an update and really provide this information so that we can better go into the budget season and formulate a budget that will accommodate this landscaping. And also, I know one of the requests of the commission was, what would it take to hire a full-time employee, and how help with this as opposed to using a professional landscaper. So just some cost comparisons and then some additional information just to prepare us for budgets. The CRA maintains landscaping and general upkeep within redevelopment areas, including the central business district and surrounding corridors, and recent and ongoing improvements, including trees and landscape installations, have increased the level of maintenance required to preserve those assets. Public Works has been supporting these efforts, including watering newly installed trees on the approximate weekly basis. However, due to staffing capacity, competing priorities, and multiple active projects, maintaining a consistent and sufficient service level has been challenging. And current drought conditions require more frequent and reliable maintenance. Not to mention, the time of the year that those trees were planted was not the most ideal for rooting, and that's probably going to be the same issue that's going to happen whenever the streetscape project is complete, because we'll have landscaping going in at the end of the year as well. The current available funds left in the Central Business District, or Central Business TIF for this, is $6,550 remaining, and in the maintenance GL account, there's $4,925,000 remaining. The estimated current cost, based on what was given to us as interim watering, would come to $15,000. So as you can see, there's going to be a deficit, and we're not going to be able to continue with interim watering until the end of the contract, at which time we can send out a formal RFP for landscaping in that area going forward. A couple things. So regarding hiring a full-time person, as opposed to using a professional landscaper. So a couple things. From a funding perspective, approximately $11,000 remain across relevant CBD accounts, which is insufficient to meet this need. And additionally, when approximately $20,000 remain in the Southwest Work District, we have, when we reviewed the boundaries, determined that that was not going to be used for this because it does fall into different districts. A comprehensive cost analysis was prepared in response to prior discussions regarding the potential addition of a public works position versus expanding contracted landscaping services. While a full-time streets division employee represents a recurring annual cost, professional landscaping services provide a dedicated schedule, specialized approach to plant care, particularly critical during the establishment period of newly installed trees. And the estimated cost to provide comprehensive landscaping and maintenance service, including watering and care of planting, is approximately $3,000 a month. And that's about what we can look forward to when budgeting landscaping going into the next budget season, approximately. And of course, that would be determined by sending out a formal RFP.
In the meantime, we have a problem.
Exactly. We have a deficit. It's going to
We have a deficit, or we have to look at some other line items and maybe move some funding, because we are going to lose those trees on Lala. And that investment, what was that, about $16,000 approximately?
From now until the end of that contract is about $15,000.
The trees, the cost of the trees themselves?
16.
That's what I thought. And so that's a substantial amount of money to throw away if we don't take care of them and make sure they are established and taken care of, and some are questionable right now. So I think the CRA board, needs to look at some of the line items and see if there is a way to move some funds to cover until such time as we issue an RFP for services, because we are going to lose those trees. We are in a drought, as you pointed out. Go ahead. Mr. Josh, Commissioner
So
Alexander.
the watering of those trees, is that something that's carried out by hand by this contractor, or is it based on our water system and the fee that the?
Does he have a water truck?
I believe so.
Mm-hmm.
This is, we were using Four Seasons.
Mm-hmm.
He was watering them. They were watering them at least twice a week.
Is it something the fire department could help us out on?
I don't think so.
Why not?
It's pretty difficult, but I mean, we can do it for a while.
Yeah, well,
That's
how
not a
long,
good
how long
plan.
until this contract expires?
October.
That's not a good plan, in my
I'm just
opinion. Yeah,
asking.
I know, I think, yeah, I get it.
The brush truck would be the best way to do that.
Yes, sir.
Right now it's down. But that's 300 gallons that we can carry around, and we could do that for a bit.
Okay, I'm just asking, because I know you guys are, what are you on, what's your schedule on those? 24? No, as far as the fire guys, on a 24-hour rotation? Okay. Gotcha. I was just trying to figure out a way to
Yeah,
save some money if we've
I
got
know.
guys sitting out at the fire station in a truck full of water.
We can save a little money and lose more by not addressing this, though. That's my concern. We've invested in these trees.
That's what I'm saying, we have the fire department water them.
Right, but the fire department also has a lot on their plate. They're doing their job. I don't know. Anybody else have any comments? Any thoughts?
I don't have any thoughts. I mean, I know we need to water the trees.
Right, nobody wants to lose that investment. I was
We
just
can't
trying to-
lose the investment.
Right.
So these are some, this is just some information to get us ready as we're moving into budget season to consider.
And I appreciate that, and I think that's great. And we need to consider all of that, but I'm concerned about the here and now.
So let me ask, so what we're asking now is, are you saying there's a $3,000 deficit to meet the end of this fiscal year? Okay, so that's a concern.
So when we go into the budget season for next year, we need to look at that line
Correct,
item.
correct. We need, yeah.
But I guess what I'm asking, Ms. Pierre, if there is, we can look at the line items in the central business TIF and see if there is some funding in one of those line items that can be moved to cover that cost of $3,000 to the landscaping maintenance line item.
The trees are located in Central TIF
Central
District.
TIF.
It's
I would
3,000
recommend-
a month.
Okay, I would recommend the professional services line in 2025.
Is that
Only $980 was spent. We currently have $110,000 budgeted on that line item. And so far, we've only spent $2,875, so I'd recommend reducing that line and increasing the landscaping GL line.
I do know we have some outstanding invoices that will be coming in for that.
Will they be over 100,000? Okay.
Let me clarify, that's $3,000
a month?
per month. That's right. I want to
month.
clarify.
Yeah, per month, so we're in
3,000 per
6
month. So we're talking, how many, 6 months? 4 months.
Four.
Okay.
So we're talking
$12,000.
12,000, at least 12,000.
Just a question. When we redo this, will we be doing this on St. John's Avenue for next year, when we will be adding those plants to the same contract?
Yes, sir. So that's why we're going to submit a formal RFP, because we'll be over that threshold of what procurement requires for formal RFPs to go out. And so we'll have some, whoever's out there wants to submit a bid, we'll do that. We'll follow the appropriate process. But it will include those additional trees, because those will be going in around December, if we, I guess November, December, if we stay on the current schedule that we have in place.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? No? Okay. Well, I don't think we still resolve this conundrum, but
What is your recommendation?
I mean, we have a lack of funding until October, so to the mayor's point, looking at our accountancy, which GL, maybe we could do a budget transfer from in order to tie us over until a formal RFP can be put forth.
And I have just a question. And this is not something that Public Works can take on?
They have been, that's who's been doing it currently, but right now we're in a drought. It's going to require more watering than what we had been doing previously. And based on staffing, currently we have a bunch of projects going on. So based on his staffing, current projects, obligations, it's tough to get them out there more than what they've been being able to do, which is once a week. They really require more than once a week watering.
can we look at whatever outstanding invoices we have for professional services, see what we have left between you and Ms. Pierre, and hopefully find some funding to get us through this dry period. Please.
Should probably do this in the form of a motion if you want a
Yes.
budget transfer out of professional services.
Should the funding allow, so if somebody can make a motion, please.
The motion to take this out of the professional services until October.
Is that enough of funding allows?
Yes.
We have a motion? We have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Before, I want to clarify,
Okay,
and
sorry.
that was if funding allows.
That's what I said, if funding allows.
Okay, thank you. I just want to
suggested
make
we
sure.
add that, just
Yes,
to be
thank you.
safe.
Yeah, that was my question too. There's no legal issue with moving that from one column to the other, Ms. West?
Okay, so I'm going to recap the motion. As I understand it, it's a motion for a budget transfer out of professional services for landscaping if funding allows through October.
Correct.
Yes, ma'am.
So we have a motion, a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Thank you. Bronson will
We did need to hear from the public.
I'm sorry, is there anything else? No? Oh, okay, you had a public comment for something else, that's why I didn't see her. Come on up, Ms. Kitchen, sorry.
Elizabeth Kitchens, Palatka, Florida. Just a point of information for you folks. The South Historic District and the Central Business District overlap. The middle of the block on St. John's Avenue, the back of those buildings, the buildings that face Oak Street are in both South Historic District and the Downtown Business District. So it's a possibility you might be able to get some funds from the South Historic District to take care of the trees on Laurel Street and Oak Street.
But just to clarify, that is the South Historic District. The South TIF District ends on the south side of Laurel.
Okay.
Different boundaries. That's why it's always so confusing for everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One more thing. Please, when you plant your landscaping, and I love landscaping, make sure that the trees are ones that can withstand drought. Holly trees need a lot of water. I just planted one in my yard and it's already dead.
Thank you. Anybody else? That's all? Yep, here. Bronson Mulholland House handrail installation, informational only.
The previous exterior renovations to the Bronson House were completed utilizing non-CRA funding sources. While the project addressed multiple exterior improvements, the original scope of work did not include the installation of handrails on the lower porch areas. Following completion, it was determined that the absence of handrails present a potential public safety concern and liability exposure to the city due to accessibility and fall risk considerations. The Bronson House is located within the North Historic TIF, and staff has determined that the proposed improvements align with the goals and objectives of the CRA plan, specifically relating to historic preservation, public safety, and continued maintenance and activation of historic assets within the development area. Because there is no dedicated general ledger account specifically established for the Bronson Mulholland House, staff has identified the North Historic District General Capital Improvements Account as a possible and appropriate, most appropriate funding source for that project. Staff proposes utilizing approximately $16,000 from the North Historic TIF General Capital Improvements, and I put the GL account in your staff report, for the fabrication and installation of lower porch handrails at the Bronson House. The improvements are intended to address and identified safety concerns, reduce potential liability risk to the city, and support the continued public use and preservation of historic structure. As the property is located in the North TIF, expenditures associated with improvements must be funded from the eligible North Historic TIF account, and staff has reviewed the proposed use of funds and determined that the expenditure is consistent with CRA objectives and permissible within the identified account. This item is being presented for information purposes. No formal board action is required at this time.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. West.
I'll point out that Chris Nardone from Passero,
It's up on
who
Zoom.
is the engineer on this, is available via Zoom if there are any questions.
And also, Ms. Jane did give us a memorandum, then I don't know if everybody's had an opportunity to read. Personally, from the historic preservation perspective, I'm opposed to this from that side of the aisle. However, I do understand the liability question, risk to the potential risk to the city. I'm hoping we can come up with a mutual solution that, as a compromise, that saves everybody. I mean, that agrees to everybody, right? Agrees for everybody. But yeah. So with that said, I have some original stereoscopic views of Bronson Mulholland Park from the 1890s. There is no railing on the lower level. There was some in the late 60s, early 70s. I don't know if that was when it was a boarding house. Nevertheless, it's been gone since. So it didn't originally have them. The deck, porch deck is different heights, but it's anywhere from the highest, I think, is around 32 inches down to 29. It's somewhere in that range. All that said, I know there are people here for public comment. Does anybody else have any questions of Ms. West or Ms. Orth before I open up to public comments?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
What is the threshold for fall protection from the deck height to the ground?
So the engineers may be able to speak more eloquently on this, but it's my understanding that the Florida Building Code for current projects does require a railing if it's 30 inches or more from basically the ground to the walkable surface of the porch.
So as long as we're less than 30 inches,
So we did.
we don't require a rail?
David did go out and measure this morning at various points along the porch. And David, you can talk about that, but they aren't consistent.
They're not consistent at all, and this is with new sod. And with that being said, this sod is not rooted in yet, which when it roots in, it will go even higher distance. Also, we have no gutters on this. So with the water come down, it's going to cause it to go even lower, which in my personal opinion, I believe will be over 30 inches in almost every place. We have some areas that are 32 to 33 inches in areas. And from my knowledge with this stuff, if you have an inspector out there, or if we do get any litigation from this, from somebody calling out there, the way the code is written mostly is, it's not if it's an average of 30 inches, it's if there's anywhere to 30 inches.
So, yeah, they're going to find the greatest distance.
And with that said, also, because it is listed on the National Register, this does not qualify as a potential exemption from building code because it's a life safety, questionable life safety issue?
Yeah, there's not a cut and dry answer on this, right? The guidelines basically, ask you to balance the historic integrity of the structure with the safety component. And as long as you're not throwing up some modern guardrails, it's still going to work with the historical significance. But I do think there might be a solution. We are in the midst of working with the Putnam Historical Society on our new MOU for their continued use of the Bronson Mulholland House. And perhaps we can discuss having them take out general liability insurance to cover any potential falls from that first floor, which would insulate the city from liability. My only concern here is liability for the city and protecting us from legal risk from falls from that first floor. That's my only concern.
Go ahead, Mr. Deputy.
I have just one concern, but let me ask for a review, Madam. The Historical Society recommends this or does not
No,
recommend?
we're going to have them come up for public
Okay,
comment,
thank
so
you.
just hear that.
One of the concerns I have coming is, it seems maybe that we're going in the direction with public art and the murals, and a concern I have is we're taking over as a CRA the maintenance of other things. So is it the goal of the North Historic District TIF fund to maintain the city buildings within the TIF fund area, or is that somebody else's responsibility, like the city who owns the building? I'm concerned that we're taking over maintenance of things and city buildings that are within a district.
Okay, well, we own the buildings, so we have
Correct.
some maintenance responsibility.
Right,
You're
but-
suggesting the source
but
of funding?
the-
The source of funding?
Yep, the source of funding. What I'm saying is, if we do this, it's on the North Historic District to take care of a city building. Is that what our TIF goal is? To use the TIF funds for the neighborhood to take care of the city building within the neighborhood?
Well,
Is the question I have.
So, but again, if we look at, and I think Ms. Roth pointed this out in her narrative, that the TIF funds that's used to eliminate blight for historic preservation, in this case, historic preservation, it does meet that requirement, the use of TIF funds for that building. And public safety as well. Go ahead,
I
Commissioner.
actually understand where he's coming from with regards to the question that he posed to, even though it sits in that area, if the TIF fund is paying for it, it would be, or it could appear that that building is owned by that district versus the city. So I understand where he's coming from, and I think it's a very valid question with regards to where the repairs actually should fall.
In other words, does this district, this small district, is it responsible for the maintenance of a building that is a citywide owned
Correct.
building? Is this district in charge of funding the repairs for a city, is next in line, are we gonna be repairing the Larimer, City Hall, and would that be on the central business district's plate? In other words, we're going back to neighborhood schools
Well,
paid for by neighborhoods.
We have set the precedent, though, we
Yes.
have done that with the Larimer, we have
Yes,
done
and
that
that's
with
what I'm
every
saying
other
is-
buildings
is-
within the TIF that the city owns. We did it,
Right.
just did it with Tillman, so we've done it with Bronson, so we have already set that precedent.
I mean, setting the precedence versus
I'm
getting
just
it-
stating that, that's all.
No, but what I'm saying, setting the precedence may not always be the correct way of going about things. And I think this commission and CRA board wants to be able to put ourselves in a position to where we utilize the funding to, even if the precedence has been set, if it was not done correctly, this gives us the opportunity to look at other resources that we would be able to, because that funding that is being utilized in that district can be distributed to something else if there is a way that we can pay for it from actual city funding. So I think just because the precedence has been set previously does not mean that we have to maintain it that way. Again, this gives us the opportunity, if it's there, because again, this is quite a bit of money that could be utilized for something else within that TIF district. And I also want to make mention, even with the MOU, and I'm very familiar with premise liability. I may not be an attorney, but I worked in a firm and was a claims manager with regards to personal injury. And even if the historical society is no longer there, the premise liability still falls on the city. So ultimately, we still are at fault, or could be potentially at fault, if this is not corrected properly, regardless of who houses or who utilized that building. It still can fall, premise liability still can fall on us.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I'm going to have to agree with Commissioner Campbell. I'm new to all of this, but what I've learned, just because we've always done it that way doesn't mean it's the right way. With that being said, we talked about a potential agreement between the Historical Society and them bringing in an insurance policy for X number of dollars. But with the code being such, if we close that gap by bringing in additional fill or additional mulch or additional substrate, that removes us from all liability, relinquishes us from having insurance, relinquishes us from putting the railing up and spending that money. Is that not correct?
No, it's not. It doesn't insulate us from liability. It gets us around violating the Florida Building Code, which we can probably maneuver out of because of the historical significance of the structure. But if someone falls off of that deck, they're going to sue everyone and see what sticks. And so that's not going to insulate us from liability.
Okay. But if a kid climbs over that rail and falls down and hurts himself, they're still going to sue us for that.
Yep.
Okay, so.
If the kid gets their arm or head caught in the railing. they
So,
sue us for
so
that.
we're open to that, but if we can reach an agreement with the historic district by not putting the railing up and protect ourselves from violating the building code by raising that space up.
So raising the space will alleviate our responsibility under the Florida Building Code from putting the railing up. That is all it does. It does not insulate us from any liability.
But we're gonna have this, the liability either way. Okay,
Absolutely.
so that would raise the goal, or that would accomplish the goal for the Historic Society, and it would take us out of that portion of violation of the code.
Go ahead, Commissioner Davis.
Just to clarify, when you said we have the liability regardless, do you mean whether the rail is there or not?
If somebody falls off of that, whether the kid climbs over the rail, sticks his
Oh,
head through it
okay,
or whatever,
yes.
we're still liable for any of that because it is a city-owned property, no different than them twisting an ankle or something walking on the sidewalk.
Agreed. This is obviously not an easy decision. I definitely respect the historical preservation. I had a similar, well, in my personal home, but the difference was I could not get insurance if I did not put rails from my porch to the ground. I mean, that was something we had to consider.
Yep.
And, one of the considerations we made to meet the requirement was to just put the rails up in a way that they were secure enough but did not attach to any historical part of our home. And so I just would like to hear some other alternatives. I mean, there is some way we're not preserving the look, but I don't want to, I'm going to use the word desecrate the historical, integrity of the building as well. So I think we have to be prudent, though. I mean, it's 2026. I don't have the expertise in historical preservation, so I'm just open to, the best way to accomplish this. While we always have liability, we also want to minimize that liability, too.
That's exactly what I
Yeah,
was
we want to
gonna say.
minimize it. Just because we have the liability, we don't mean we want to just say,
Yeah.
so we want to minimize it.
Yeah, and I think Commissioner Alexander was trying to come up with an alternative that wouldn't be so unsightly to the historic integrity of the building. Go ahead.
And another question, how does this relate to ADA compliance?
So there is a ramp that provides accessibility to the Bronson House, and that fulfills.
Exactly, and I know that ramp, was it there when it was built?
No.
I was just curious. I know the answer to that.
But it's also not in the front facade. You can see it from the side, granted,
So
but it's
you're
not the
tell-
front
you're
facade.
tell-
Making a point that
Yeah, I know, and that happens, and over time, if things are added, they become historical within themselves, depending on when they were added, so that's another caveat. At least from the historic preservation standpoint, something can be historic, even if it's not original, because it's been there for such a length of time.
So my question is there not any type of railing that could be considered that does not take away, somewhat like Commissioner Davis had to do with her property? Again, I don't want us to always err on the side of avoiding potential skating between on thin ice. Like if we go and we fill the 30, we do the close that, and everything else remains the same, there's still an opportunity for liability to fall on us. And if we can minimize that by any stretch of the imagination, I would go with that method, because again, go with trying to get the railing done, just to give us another peace of mind to a certain extent when it comes down to if something was to happen. We know that, check, we had railing, so we can take care of it a different way. But I just don't want to not have it addressed if there is potential. Even, I don't know if there's somebody we can bring in with a historical background that could give us some suggestions as to how we can do it in a way that it feels that it's still historic, but it's safety, just other options like everyone, well, like a few others have said.
So I know that what I can tell you is there is railing on the top floor balcony, porch. And so the idea was to match that, so aesthetically, it looks the same. And that was kind of the solution to that point, so it didn't really take away from the aesthetic of the home, it mirrors it.
Technically, you're not supposed to do that either, from a historic preservation standpoint, but mimicking it. Okay.
I think what
1
I'm
minute, 1
trying
minute.
to say-
Just 1
I
minute.
think what I'm trying to say is insurance and safety-wise, with this building, it is a city issue for the city commission, not for the CRA to be taking over.
So
That's
that,
what I'm
that is
trying to
not
say.
accurate.
So there
Why
is,
is that?
Well, 1
We
minute,
don't-
let
the
Ms.
CRA
West-
doesn't own the building.
so,
Let
right,
Ms. West finish.
CRA does not own the building, it is a city building, however, it is in the Northwest Ward TIF.
Right.
And part of chapter 163 is that you're limiting slum and blight, but additionally preserving historic buildings through the preservation of historic places.
So it is
It would
allowable.
actually fall within the bound for the information for the CRA district.
I think the point is being missed of what he's trying to say.
What I'm trying
No,
to,
I
and this is what I'm
understand.
trying to say is, you're asking a small percentage of the population to fix city buildings. And that is the responsibility of the entire city, not small neighborhoods. And that's all I'm trying to say is this,
Right, so just to reiterate,
Yes.
confirmation of understanding, what you're stating is, because it is city-owned, it is used by people throughout the city, not just within the North TIF.
Correct.
The funding, you're not opposed to putting a rail up, you're opposed to it coming out of a GL within the North TIF because it is a smaller funding source.
Right.
And that should really be funded as more of a city.
by the city at
Correct,
large.
under the umbrella
Right.
of a city account.
It's not a clubhouse for the North Historic District, it just happens to be there, and that's fine, but we're opening this door wide so that the central business district, City Hall is historic. Are we going to be taking funding to maintain that out of the central district? The Larimer, a lot of the city historic buildings are within these three districts, and is it up to these three districts to maintain them? Or is that a citywide issue?
So I just want to clarify that that is actually 100% legal under Chapter 163. It's consistent with our CRA plan to reduce blight and maintain the historical significance of buildings, and CRA funds are routinely throughout the state of Florida and historically here in Palatka used on city-owned buildings that are within our TIF district.
So let me ask the question in a different way. Why can't we take in consideration utilizing city funding versus TIF funding to get this project done?
There's nothing precluding alternative funding sources. I just wanted to make it clear
No,
that this is a
I don't think
legal
there's no
funding source.
misunderstanding of it can't be utilized. That's why I said I understand the point that Mr. Deputy was making. Again, this money that is being taken out of the TIF could be utilized for something else within that TIF district if the city has a way to be able to pay out of city funding versus that TIF funding. That loosens up some money to have some more projects, potential projects in that area done if we can think about it a different way. So I think that's what Mr. Deputy was trying to bring into the conversation. And I think it should be something that should be entertained. I actually support if there is a way, because that money, again, could be utilized for something else within that TIF district.
So my takeaway then would be to work with Ms. Chantel and find a different funding source within the city as opposed to the North TIF.
Yes, and I would make that recommendation, because again, just because we've done it historically, it does not mean we have to continue doing it the way that it was being done. So
the determination of the funding is based on not the ownership of the building, but the location of the building, 100%. You can correct.
Does the city not have a maintenance fund for the Bronson House?
Not enough to, no,
None?
no, and that's,
Well, and this was not in the original scope of work, which is why we're here today.
yeah.
I'm understanding. Yes, thank you.
And if you look historically again at city buildings, maintenance has not been our strong suit until more recently. So,
Which is a
Big-
better understanding of making sure
right,
that
I'm not,
we-
again, I'm just pointing that out, yes. I don't know if Commissioner Jones has anything to say, or Mr. Nardone. No, nobody's saying anything. With that, I do have people who want to come up for public comment. If there's no feedback from Commissioner Jones, do you have anything you want to contribute?
He just
Say?
came off of mute.
I don't have a comment.
Okay. Ms. Kitchens?
Legal Kitchens, Palatka Board. I'm also on the board of directors of the Putnam County Historical Society, and I was one of the founding members of the Historical Society back in the 70s when citizens got together and persuaded the city of Palatka to save the Bronson House. The Bronson House is 172 years. Nobody has fallen off that porch, including during the Civil War when it was occupied by Union soldiers and there were skirmishes. I think the question is moot. In times past, when the Historical Society had events at the Bronson House, we put up rope barriers, which are just as good as banisters. My mother several years ago was sitting on our downstairs banister, got her foot caught in it and fell and hit her knees on our porch. So like one of the CRA members said, a kid can stick his head through the banister. Somebody is determined to make the city liable. They will do something to make the city liable. I would point out that when the Putnam County Historical Society has events, that they are told they're liable for any injury on the property. A couple of years ago, we had a genealogical expo, and a tree jumped up and hit a lady, and she claimed it. Yes, I'm being facetious, but she claimed that she fell and the tree hit her. So she wanted to sue the city, and the city told the Historical Society that we were liable anytime there was an event held at the Bronson House. We were liable for it. So the liability would fall on us, and Ms. West and everybody else is right. You can sue anybody you want to sue. My solution would be this. Well, let me say this real quick. Old houses didn't have gutters on them. My house is 150 odd years old. It has no gutters. And no, it hasn't risen or because of, or whatever. So the water blocking off a house that had no gutters is meaningless, basically. Have the Historical Society make it a requirement that the Historical Society does put up the rope barriers when they have an event. If the city event, then have them put up the rope barriers. That way, you got the rope barriers up, you take them down when there's no event, and the historical integrity of the house is not damaged. This is a historical house. It is on the historic register. You can go back to the late 1880s. There was no downstairs porch on it. I just quickly looked at Pinterest when I was at home, seeing a bunch of old houses. A lot of the old houses of the 1800s on up did not have downstairs railings for some reason, downstairs banisters. The house should be left the way it is because of its integrity. And if I was the engineer who got some money to do the shoddy job they did on it, I might point out, which has still not been corrected completely, I would certainly want to get more money by having banisters added. I would not have this group add the banisters given the shoddy job they did on the house. And yes, they fixed a couple of the things, like the little gap on the front porch. But there's still many, many issues with what they did. And now they want to come back and put banisters on? What's wrong with that picture? However, this is a historic house. I am, as a citizen and as a member of the Historical Society, I am against putting the porch railing up. It's unnecessary. Put temporary barriers up when you have an event and let it go from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else here for public comment? Come up. Ms. Nicole.
Nicole Grace, I'm president of the Putnam County Historical Society. I was up here a couple commission meetings ago. I missed the last one. I do apologize. I was ill. Thank you for everyone coming to that. We appreciate the proclamation. Ms. Kitchens brought up about this meeting, and I was unaware that we were adding the bottom railing or even considering it. And I did some preliminary review. I reached out to Paul Weaver, and I haven't spoken with him yet about it. The railing was not on the bottom of the porch. I looked back to see if we had any. The lady that lived there in 1946 to 48 after World War II came by, which was was really cool, but, you know, her description of it, there's a top railing, she used it to hang her husband's dress shirts out, because grocery stores, you had to wear white dress shirts every day. And she says, we have that top railing, I can hang his dress shirt off, and I can save on starch. So we had that top railing. It was exact squares. Now, that's a change we've made for safety. I asked Public Works, they raised the, and you see it's not squares anymore, it's rectangles. A square is also a rectangle, but. So, you know, we raised that for safety. We went back and changed the angle of the porch as well on that upper story, because they felt it needed to meet, you know, modern code and not have people roll off. So, and, you know, that's, you know, so there's been some changes too with this renovation that we've had. They did cut the cantilever beams they actually go over. So cantilevers where you're on a, you know, on a support, when you have that cantilever, weight here balances weight here. So you have a higher, and Mr. Nardone would be better with that, but it's a stronger structure. We had to cut that, so that is also a change. My concern is, as we're adding to this, it is jeopardizing future grants and the look of the porch. I love what you're saying as far as having something that you can't see. I have, my brother-in-law is an architect, and they do some really cool stuff that's kind of invisible. But how we use that porch traditionally, we have the kids come for occupation of Palatka. In the past, they sit on the edge of it because it's that shape. They sit down. I like lime rock. Somebody said something about adding material, like right now we have the hay right next to the foundation. I'd love to pull that up and put lime rock down, because that will help with drainage as well as keep some growth. Thank you very much, that's time.
Thank you. Is there anybody else here for public comment on this item?
Thank you.
Seeing none, I'll close public comment. This was intended to be informational only. Oh, come on up, Ms. Orr.
Yes, this was intended to be informational only regarding the use of funds, but I think maybe at this point, it should be tabled until we determine exactly how we want to move forward with rails or not adding rails. What is the will of the commission?
I agree. I think we, need to be certain and see if there are any alternative solutions. People have thrown out some ideas, but maybe there are others we're not thinking of, and maybe it would be helpful to call the State Historic Preservation Office and get their input, or Rick Gonzalez. Maybe he would have some ideas. He's an architect that specializes in historic preservation, is on the State Historic Preservation Board. So I just think maybe we should be looking a little further for ideas. Sometimes we don't come up with them on our own before we take any action on that. Is anybody opposed to that?
No, ma'am, you covered it.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Pierre, April 2026 financial report.
Greetings, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. So we're pulling up the CRA TIF financial dashboard. The dashboard was designed to be a one-page, mostly one-page document to summarize the financial condition. At the top, it's overall stable. The revenues continue to exceed expenditures to date. And our net position, which is our revenues minus expenditures, is $397,212.55, mostly property tax collections. And it's if you go down to the table below that, we have our budget from 2025 versus our budget from 2026. And we have our actual expenditures of $663,501.89, and then actual revenues of $1,060,714.44. Just below that is a table of our expenditures comparing fiscal year 25-26 budget to actuals and a percentage of our actuals versus our budget. So for central business, the actuals are $327,000, that's 17% of the budget. Our South TIF district, the actuals are $314,000, that's 46%. And the North TIF district, actuals are $21,141.93, and that's 17% of the budget. And just below that is our table of revenue realization. And this just breaks down the sources of revenue. That first line is Central Business District, and it just breaks out by the city versus the county and the percentage of each that we've collected. So far, we've collected most of our revenues. And just below that are the key activity lines. For Central Business District, most of our activity is coming from landscaping, the building improvement grants, Christmas lights. For the South TIF District, the Tillman Project and administrative costs. And for the North TIF, it's mainly administrative costs. And then our cash and financial outlook, that represents our cash forward. It's $1,699,000 across all the districts, and then we give the breakdown by district. Ultimately, our revenues exceed expenditures. The encumbrances, which represent future purchases that we have a contract with the vendor, and that totals $23,129. And the remaining fiscal year budget after encumbrances is $2,740,874.51. And that concludes my financial report.
You can go ahead, Commissioner.
I would like to just take a moment and thank Ms. Pierre. I came to her office this morning without notice and asked her if she was available for a 5-minute explanation and class on this ledger. And she was gracious enough to walk through this and spend some time with me on it. And I wanted to show my appreciation and say thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody else have any questions of Ms. Pierre or comments? Thank you.
I also wanted to say thank you because I had questions and she actually came to my work. And thank you.
You're welcome.
Going the extra mile.
Is it quite a mile? Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
St. John's Avenue Corridor intersection improvements, condition assessment and corrective action. Ms. Orr.
So basically, this is for discussion and direction regarding the observed failure of the intersections up and down St. John's Avenue. This was put together basically because at the request of the commission. So the background for the intersections, construction of St. John's Avenue corridor intersection improvements began in October 19th of 2021 and reached substantial completion August 1st of 2022 as part of a grant-funded streetscape and roadway enhancement initiative intended to improve the visual character, drivability, and overall functionality of the downtown corridor. At the most recent CRA board meeting, concerns were raised regarding premature deterioration observed at multiple intersections along the corridor. Reporting conditions included dislodged or failing brick pavers, rutting and surface deformation, and uneven and compromised utility structures, including the manhole cover and the sewer covers. Because the project was completed relatively recently, questions have been raised regarding long-term performance, maintenance responsibility, and potential corrective actions. I did have our in-house engineer go down there and take a look at those with me. We've had some conversation. I've also had a conversation with David and Joe from Public Works. And so some preliminary observations indicate that several factors may be contributing to the deterioration of the St. John's Avenue corridor intersection, including potential subgrade settlement, roadway loading conditions, material performance limitations, and issues surrounding utility structure, elevations, and surrounding base conditions. Given the decorative nature of the corridor improvements and the high-traffic environment of the intersection, additional evaluation is necessary to determine the exact root cause and appropriate long-term corrective strategy. Staff is currently reviewing historical project documentation, including construction records, inspection and acceptance documents, and materials associated with the original project. I'm just going to skip ahead a little bit. One of the things that we determined that we probably need to do is, because of the technical nature of this issue, staff intends to defer to the city's new in-house engineer, which was Caitlin, and she came and looked at them, and then we also had a gentleman from Hanson look at those intersections as well. Engineering staff noted that the intersection improvements were originally construction as part of a cost share grant initiative with the St. Johns River Water Management District, focused on stormwater treatment and nutrient removal, and the original engineer of record for the project was Ayers Associates. So that answers one of your questions, Mr. Deputy. And the design included Unilock, Eco, and please forgive me because I have no idea what this stuff is. It's out of my wheelhouse. And design included Unilock, Eco, prior permeable pavers within the corridor sections. At this time, staff has not completed a formal engineering determination regarding the root cause of the failure, but additionally, evaluations may be necessary to assess long-term corrective actions and provide additional discussion as needed. So staff recommends that the CRA board receive and discuss the presentation regarding current conditions of the intersections and provide any feedback appropriate as authorized to coordinate with the city's in-house engineer, public works procurement for further evaluation and potential future corrective options. I did get something earlier. It was right before I came in here, so I apologize you don't have this. But just some food for thought. This was provided by Hanson. It's some information concerning, and this is just very high level, what a projected cost could be, because that we probably won't get another grant to fix that. It's only 3 years since that project was completed, or actually a little bit longer than that. But the bottom line is, and this is, like I said, this is very high level, but we're looking at probably somewhere around an estimate of in and around $871,000 to fix those intersections. And that includes design, bidding, construction, survey, geotech, all of those things would be within that estimate.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions?
Might be a little bumpy, a little longer.
Might be. It's traffic calming in that.
I have a question.
Go ahead. Take the car by.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Alexander.
I'm still new to all of this, so hopefully Ms. West can help me out. But when you have a project like that goes south, for lack of a better term, do they come with a warranty? I mean, because at 3 years, you would think the road would last a little longer than 3 years.
Yeah, we are absolutely going to have to take a look at the contractual commitments here. This is the first that I've heard of this potential price tag to fix it, so we're going to have to learn.
We got the right person that's going to get them right.
Well, from my understanding.
No, come on up, Mr. Davey, come on up. No shouting from the
From my
seats.
understanding, just from, I've been in the private sector. We get the job, we do stuff a little bit differently. But from my understanding, we have to go with the cheapest bidder, is what I was told, with this stuff. And I'm sure all y'all have common sense. If
We
you
get
go
cheap
rates
work.
in advance, you got good, better, best, and premium. When you pay for good, you're not getting premium. And it's not a good, I hate to say it like that, but this is kind of how you gotta look at it. And I'm not taking up for, you know my position on the previous people that did this.
So with that, but we had an engineer on record that designed this, and they were supposed to give specs to build something that was sustainable, and then the contractor was there to execute. So does the burden fall on the engineer or on the contractor, or do we have to have a determination on what part failed, or where do we go on that?
That's where we sue them all and let them sing the fingers.
See where it goes.
I like where you're going with that, Miss West. I can't, yeah, I feel like the county or the city was taken advantage of on this project, and I don't like that.
You all set, Commissioner Barr?
Yeah, just like Commissioner Alexander stated, generally it should have a level of specification for the project and the minimum standards for the material that goes in for those particular jobs. And again, if it's in the contract that it's warranted from 1 to 3 years, then we need to make sure that we follow those and make sure that we recoup those dollars as best we can.
So the project was completed in 2021, though, I heard?
22 and 22.
2022.
Right.
Okay, we're in 2026.
Mayor.
Go ahead, Commissioner, Mr. Deputy,
Yes,
sorry.
help me out with this. Who on our end does the inspection of these projects? Who inspected these intersections as they were being finished, is what I'm asking. Is that county or city?
Let me help with that. I think we used to have like a project manager that would oversee those projects, but I'm not sure based on the number of projects that they had running that they could follow those projects as fast as they were being initiated and completed. I pushed very hard to help to get an engineer here, and that's what our engineer would be able to help in those regards as it relates to the funding, the monies that we spend on a lot of these architectural projects, building projects, and road projects. We can save a lot of money with just our engineer. So to answer the question, the engineer would probably help in those regards as opposed to people who don't have those backgrounds.
I don't think we even had a project manager at that point.
Right, because we've had, every time there's a project, we will have to pay the engineer for whatever architectural drawings, and we have to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars at a time for every project. And so by having our own engineer, that's going to save us times over.
That's money on your team.
And we do have our own engineer now, but even at that point in time, not only do we not have an engineer, we didn't have a project manager either. So we were relying on somebody who had multiple jobs to take that task on, which is a lot to ask.
And putting our
And maybe not have the
trust,
expertise either.
and putting the trust and blind trust into the people who we hired to do the job, and you see what we got.
So my question for the commission is, this information provided on the dollar, that was very high level, first glance, that's not an in-depth study or anything like that. But I presented that for the purpose of having you think about how you want to move forward with this, because this is not the first time this has come up. This has come up a couple times. So for staff, we just want your input on how you think we should move forward to put this to rest.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Ms. Alls, thank you for bringing this, and I'd like to take the staff recommendation for you guys to continue working with the departments you're working with, and as Ms. West just indicated, she'll be looking into it from the perspective of contractual obligations and warranty. So I'd like to see us accept your recommendation.
I think we all agree on that. And
Second, is that a motion?
I move.
Second.
okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Thank you.
Was that something we were voting on?
Yeah, we just did.
No, I'm just saying that I thought we were going to.
No, she said she was looking for direction.
She was looking for direction. Yeah, so
Ms. West is going to see what.
well, they're going to do it.
Need to
you know,
get public comment before you, because
Yeah, I did not do public comment, I'm sorry. Anybody here for public comment? Come up, Ms. Kitchens. Thank you, sorry.
I'm Liquor Kitchen from Latin, Florida. I just want to tell y'all a little bit of history very briefly. Al Bush was our city manager for 33 years, and yes, we generally take the lowest bidder, but Al had the foresight to check, and if the lowest bidder wasn't the best one, he did not take it. So if you get the lowest bidder, you get what you pay for, and we're driving on what y'all pay for. So yes, look at the lowest bidder, but then make sure that they are also the best choice. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else here for public comment? Thank you. On to city manager verbal report.
Okay, well, seeing how this is a kind of a semi-permanent position for me, I'm going to pass it to Ms. off. Let her give a report. She has a proposed residential rehab assistant program that she wanted you guys to take a look at.
Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Law.
This is just strictly high level. This has come up in conversation from the board, going back to our last CRA board meeting where we discussed the building improvement grant, and some concerns were voiced that the building improvement grant is great, but it kind of limits those that can apply because they don't necessarily have the upfront financial means to cover the cost before they can reach the reimbursement portion. And so what I put together is a residential rehabilitation assistance program to assist those within that demographic of not being able to afford those upfront costs. And keep in mind, this is strictly a pilot program initiative that we can discuss, and I just wanted to plant this seed because we are going into budget season and trying to determine if this is something that we are going to implement, what that funding should look like within those districts. So I will go ahead and move into this. The current challenge, existing building improvement grant operates as a reimbursement program, and residential applicants often cannot cover the upfront costs. Minor code and safety issues remain unresolved due to financial barriers, and that just becomes a consistent issue because they just continue to incur fines that they can't afford to pay, and they can't afford to fix the issues, and so the fines are ongoing. Increased code compliance concerns and continued neighborhood blight within the CRA districts are a result. The pilot program goals. Our proposed pilot program is intended to assist income qualified homeowners within the CRA district, remove upfront financial barriers, address minor code compliance and safety related issues, and reduce residential blight and stabilize neighborhoods. And then those would be some of the eligible improvements. And keep in mind, because this is through CRA, it would have to only pertain to slum and blight. So examples would be like minor roof repairs. So one thing to just preface here, this does not include a full roof replacement. That's not considered elimination of slum and blight. Electrical hazards, plumbing deficiencies, HVAC failures, exterior deterioration tied to code issues, and minor structural or safety-related deficiencies. So that's how this would stay in line with Chapter 163. Funding structure is direct grant assistance. CRA pays the contractor directly, does not go to the resident. No reimbursement requirement, so this is not something they have to pay back. So that's an important piece. If they could afford to pay it back, this is they probably wouldn't have to go this route. Program limitation. So this is where the conversation would come up and what this should look like. So this is strictly for, just for us to kind of view. So maximum assistance, $12,500. Total pilot funding, $75,000 cap. Estimated assistance at that amount, 6 to 10 households. Applicants must own and occupy the property, be located within a CRA district, meet established income qualification thresholds, have documented code issue or verified standard condition, and obtain approval prior to beginning work. And then CRA district funding structure, program administered as one unified pilot, funding remains district specific. Funds are drawn only from an applicable CRA trust fund based on project location. So these 3 separate funds, one for the North TIF, one for the South TIF, and one in the Central Business. And this is a pilot approach, and it is here to evaluate program demand, measure neighborhood impact, assess administrative capacity, determine funding structure modifications, anticipated outcome. A targeted controlled program focused on addressing residential blight where eligible needs exist. And these are some of the key takeaways. Targets residential properties within the CRA district, assist income qualified homeowners who can't afford the upfront cost for reimbursement, focused on minor code compliance and health and safety issues. Direct contractor payment structure removes participant barriers, district-specific funding with total cap at $75,000, just as an example for discussion purposes. Designed as a controlled pilot to evaluate the demand and neighborhood impact. And the desired outcome is to reduce residential blight, support neighborhood stabilization, provide accessible assistance tool where eligible needs exist within CRA boundaries. Any questions?
If you have a question, go ahead.
Yeah, can we roll back a couple of slides? I think where the requirements are the eligible items for repair.
Which one?
Oh, to the list.
The eligible items.
Eligible repairs. Go back.
Yeah. So on the, when you're looking at like HVAC and plumbing, electrical, because if we're looking at like improving the blight, you're getting on the inside of the house as it relates to like electrical, plumbing, and those things when we're talking about fixing somebody's or repairing someone's home or what have you. And you can easily, go through all of the budgeted monies every year as opposed to things that is truly like a need as it relates to blight, because blight is more so external as opposed to getting interior, getting inside. So I'm not sure how the rest of the board feel about that, but I think we can really burn through quite a bit of dollars that might not make sense to people, especially if they own those.
And that's what this is meant, just to be a pilot and open for discussion. We're not implementing anything as of yet, but this is so that as we move into preparing the CRA budget, we have these conversations, like what is an appropriate amount, what is the count, what of these components will be eligible and what would typically be ineligible. So these are just conversations.
And I, to kind of piggyback on what Commissioner Borum just said, in the past, the home improvement program did focus only on exterior repairs. And honestly, you can't get insurance with just a minor roof repair. You will not get homeowners insurance these days. Your roof usually has to be replaced. So rather than delving into electrical and plumbing, it might be better to just stay on the outside. And
Yeah.
maybe replace a roof instead of minor roof repairs, which doesn't usually fly with insurance companies.
Well, yeah, and so one of the reasons, because
All of these things are so expensive, too. That $12,500 is not going to go too far.
Well, and I get asked this a lot. A lot of folks are asking, why are we not covering a full roof replacement, even on the building improvement grant? And one of the reasons is because we don't want any overlap. If someone is filing an insurance claim for a roof replacement, we don't want any overlap.
I get that, but they should be able to provide documentation in regard to that. And, and so go ahead, Commissioner Alexander.
I'm new to this, so maybe you can help me myself. So if I like this program, it's helping out those folks that don't have those upfront fees, and that's creativity, and that's a good thing. So if someone were to get approved for this program, and I assume the CRA would be administering the funds, and they would control every aspect of it, and how would they interact with the homeowner as far as a timeline on these repairs to be executed in an estimate? Because some of these things, they may or may not be able to occupy the home during the repairs. So would we have administrative rights over that as well and set that timeline with the contractor?
We would, and typically, this could be different. Again, this is strictly for discussion.
Oh, yeah.
But typically, like with the building improvement grant, we set 12 months. So it's 12 months from the start, and they have 12 months to complete the work. And with this particular program, we would pay the contractor directly. So it wouldn't necessarily go through the resident. We would help support that process by paying the contractor directly.
Okay, that was my, how do we control that timeline and the execution of that? So we would remove the homeowner from that part of the equation. Okay, good deal. Thank you.
Go ahead. Commissioner Davis.
Ms. Alls, thank you. And I by no means am I speaking on behalf of Commissioner Campbell. If I remember correctly, I don't know, I think you talked about getting some alternatives so members of the community who are eligible can get some help without having to be reimbursed. So, thank you. And just Commissioner
Oh, you forget who
Alexander. No, I'm not, but, just to bring you up a little bit, because of the current program of a reimbursement type program, we're finding that a lot of people who need it are not necessarily applying. So our number one goal is to eliminate blight where we can with these grants. And I think this would probably be more favorable. And the other thing is I wanted to mention, Commissioner Borum, you're right. One of the things we have to make sure is that our caps are reasonable for the work that could eliminate blight, and that will prevent consideration for projects that far exceed. So, thank you, Ms. Alls. I think this is a great start for us to consider, and I hope the board can have productive conversations so we can nail down and be able to get to this pilot program for our citizens in the area. Thank you.
Commissioner Barr?
Yes, and I just had one last comment. I know we had passed, I think it was a policy a while back when Mr. Holmes were city manager, and we had to do something as it relates to home improvements, and at the time, we did not have a CRA administrator at the time. So what they worked out, they allowed for anybody they put the burden on the homeowner to be able to run the full project as it relates to picking whichever contractor they had, as long as they met the criteria. So that might still be in place. So we might need to look at that information, documentation, and maybe have to pull that if we're going to go this route, because if you're going to run the program and take it from initiation to completion, we might need to take the thing that we voted on several years ago when Mr. Holmes was in place, so we can take that out of play.
Also, are we going to put in there somewhere that if they live within the South or North Historic Districts, they must apply for a certificate of appropriateness for any work, any alterations? And also, is there any kind of payback? So the home improvement program that was in place in 2009, was put in place in 2009 for the CRA, had a payback clause. So if you sold a house within 3 years, you had to pay back a portion of that. It was prorated over the 3-year period, but that was also another thing that was in the original home improvement program,
And
which
that
was
is
a
something
similar
that we would
program.
want to put in place as well, especially
Okay.
because they aren't paying anything back.
Yes,
So
that's just my suggestion.
I appreciate you guys allowing me to learn these little issues, and thank you for pointing out that. But so the goal, if I understand this correctly, is to encourage and help more people become eligible for these programs and these. Yep, and this wasn't available before.
I'm sorry?
This wasn't available before. Isn't available
Hasn't been
currently.
available for a long
Not
time.
for a while. is
Great.
my understanding. And
Great.
it's been out there in various forms,
Mm-hmm.
but it just hasn't been available the last couple of years.
Great. Yeah. Any opportunity where we can make it easier for our constituents to receive this funding, that's their funding, let's figure out how they can get it.
The other one that was in the past that was also funded but no longer exists is the Live Where You Work, so that there was some option for attainable housing for municipal employees and school district employees that wanted to live in one of the TIF districts, but had worked in one of the TIF districts as well. So the police force, the fire, school district, they could get money towards the purchase of a home in one of the TIF districts, and it also gave a police presence in those districts as well. And that one, was also in place, and this never went away, so to speak.
Nicole, can you speak louder? People in the...
Is there anything else of Ms. Hall?
I just want to say thank you, because I know since you've been on board, you have, I don't know how you've come up to breathe, because it's been one thing after another, but I definitely want to say thank you. It's not going unnoticed. And everything that we have brought to you for consideration, you have brought us results back in some way, shape, or form. So I do want to commend you for what you have done since you've been here. And I think that we have some others, but this is a CRA. I'll address them other times. But thank you, thank you, thank you.
On to agenda item D, Streetscape Phase 2 project update.
Okay. So, just going back to previous conversations, I know it was an ask from the board just to give a project update, additional, and also the schedule. So we do now have a schedule. And as I preface every time, this is construction. This could change at any given moment, but as of right now, this is the most current schedule. And it's all the way through till December, so it's accounting for each block. So just dive right into it. At a previous CRA board meeting, commissioners raised several questions and concerns regarding the ongoing streetscape project. Discussion primarily focused on project communication, schedule transparency, contractor oversight, design modifications, project costs, and overall project delivery expectations. Staff coordinated with the project manager, the project management team, and contractor representatives to compile responses and provide updated information regarding the project's current status. Staff has received an updated schedule, information intended to improve communication with merchants and stakeholders regarding construction timelines. The contractor has indicated that the current project timeline remains achievable and that the project is presently back on track, and updated construction schedule has been provided. So one of the questions we very specifically asked the contractor is, does this still look like they will be able to complete this by December? Merchants are concerned because of Christmas activities, and he has told us at this time, yes, they are still on track to complete by December. Also, communication with the merchants has improved. We started sending out regular emails. Every time we get a schedule update, we make sure to communicate that out in some form of a newsletter or just an update. Concerns regarding contractor communication and project management transition were also reviewed, and staff was advised that a new project manager from DCCM has assumed oversight responsibilities and is actively working with the contractor to ensure project deliverables and deadlines continue to be met in accordance with the project schedule. We actually met with the new project manager through DCCM. We had a meeting and a walkthrough last week just to identify any key areas of concerns and just basic information, just looking at everything and making sure everything looked like it was on track and there weren't going to be any unforeseen issues. Questions regarding design modifications, including the bump outs and parking impacts, were addressed through coordination with the prior project management team, which would have overseen and approved those design changes during project implementation. Commission also requests clarification regarding project change orders. Staff has confirmed, and I apologize because this was a misprint on me, staff has confirmed that one change order, but in fact it's actually two. We've had two change orders. I completely forgot about the change order for the trees. So the trees was the first one, and then the electrical was the second change order. So two change orders were processed for the project and executed by the previous city manager. And additionally, commissioners requested a full accounting of total project costs and related financial information. I did send that over to the finance director, and that would have been the email that we received last week. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Staff recommendation: receive the Streetscape Project 2 updates and provide any additional policy direction or follow-up requests to staff as deemed appropriate. So any follow-up questions to that information with the updates for the Streetscape Project?
I have.
Go ahead, Mr. Duncan.
Ms. Nicole, I've tried to be very, very clear since this inception 8 years ago that one of the goals of this project was for the opposite end of the river business district to be able to do festivals, et cetera, and have that electrical availability. Our electric on our end hasn't worked in years. Hence, we've had battery-operated Christmas lights, et cetera. But we are actually receiving less electricity than previously when it did work. And so like on my block, in order to do a festival, we are going from 20 outlets on 10 trees, 10 spots for trees, to 6 bushes and 12 outlets. And so our ability to do functions and events, et cetera, has actually decreased along with our landscaping. And I don't know when that happened, because I have asked at every last meeting that we've had downtown, and I've always been assured that we were planning for those functions to happen. So once again, our end of St. John's downtown won't have the electricity that the Riverside end has, and so we're being limited and we're getting less than we had. I don't know when that change happened, or...
So just for my understanding.
Sure.
So the concern is you're stating it's reduced electrical outlets to be able to
Yes.
lights for.
Oh, no, for vendors. If we were gonna do a festival, I now have, on my block, there would be enough space for 40-some vendors. 12 could have electricity.
And what was it previously?
20. And so
There
we're
are less
getting
receptacles.
receptacles, so we're getting less. And that's what I'm not understanding is when did the less happen when we were hoping for more, not less?
I believe that was in the plans the whole time. Is that?
To the best of my knowledge, what I spoke with Joe about with this was originally where we got this basically $500,000 change order for electrical, if y'all remember that. That was part of this electric. Now again, I'm not up to date with what y'all originally had to what we did have. I thought we were all good on that until I spoke to Mr. Deputy last Thursday. But the $400,000, that was for vendors, but it was 30 amp and 50 amp receptacles. So people with food trucks and big things could come in there, and that's when we were going to be spending another $500,000 to basically supply power to those people. Not little receptacles for lights or TVs or something, but receptacles to power food trucks.
No, but we don't have that power either, do we?
No, we do not have the power
So
for food trucks.
we're not going to be able to have food trucks, and we won't be able to have, we would have less vendors and no food trucks. And so I'm not sure that was explained to us in that manner as to making it available, and we're limiting economic viability on the opposite end of downtown with that.
Well, most, not to disagree with that any at all, this is information I got from the Public Works Director, but most food trucks I've
Have
ever
their
been
own
around
generator.
have their own generators.
We also have an ordinance that limits generators in downtown.
Well, a noise ordinance, I would imagine.
And they're emissions, thank you.
And I can't help you on that. The ordinance.
And I understand, I'm just concerned because this has changed, and I didn't fully understand when we were talking electricity. I understood we didn't know where the junction box was going, and we could figure that out.
I'm not an electrician, so I can't give you that. Just a simple theory, if we're not drawing a ton of power, we could always put a splitter, or we can add another box to that where the junction is. We can add more receptacles, possibly. I'm not saying that's a fact. That just depends on how much power we're pulling off of each one. But that is something we could look at down the road. And the reason to rate the price was going to go up so much is because the conduit in these lines would not hold the wire for the other lines.
It's not large enough.
And we'd have to rip everything out, directional drill, replace lines, and replace wires. And that obviously could be $500,000.
So this whole thing failed where?
I don't even know words again on that.
Okay.
I can guess, I'm gonna say the best answer before I started.
Wise answer, not the best,
And
but
then,
wise answer.
One more question with that.
And I don't think we're looking to point fingers to blame. I think we're just
Yes.
trying to come up with solutions.
Solutions is
I
what,
would love to have a solution to this project.
yes.
Trust me.
So I'm looking at the new schedule that we have here, and I see that we're already behind a couple of weeks. So what's, because we should technically have started today in this 700 block, which they were counting on, because, anyway. But now we're not done with the 800 south side, we haven't even started. So what's our holdup now?
We had a little hiccup with, as I told you, with the two part of the sidewalk, the longitudinal lines of the sidewalks, which DCCM told the contractor that was okay. That was not approved by FDOT. We have finally got that taken care of. And I spoke with them, I believe Nicole was with us, I know Joe was, and Chris, and Chief Shaw. And my first item of business with them was, I don't care what you have to do, I don't care how you do it, you're gonna meet the schedule before you get to do it. And they don't like to do it because I'm talking until somebody answers the phone. And I do not have much fear of them meeting their schedule.
So they'll be starting back up.
I believe this week. There's no, if they're not out there, I've already reached out to the project manager of Mayor. I'm waiting on a call back from him.
Okay.
And if I don't get a call back, I'll just call him again and again and again. And then I'll call them.
Right, it's just hard for businesses to plan if you don't know that you're gonna have access to your front door.
I understand completely. It is what it is all I can say. Trust me.
I got you.
Commissioner Davis.
Yes, Mr. David, what is the contractor's work schedule?
I'd have to look at it. I don't have.
Oh, okay, you don't have to tell me,
What
but
they have done
I don't see
is
them.
the way they've changed it up is mostly they're trying to demo at night and on the weekend.
Okay.
And get it knocked out so it's not impacting the city like during the week.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I'll follow up with you and see what that looks like, because I'm walking and looking all the time. I'm looking for the workers. I haven't seen them.
A lot on the weekend.
Okay.
So they can just stay out everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, so currently their schedule is they demo Sunday night and Monday night, and then they pour concrete the Tuesday and Wednesday evenings. That's kind of been the rhythm up to this point. And then we had a couple of days where they got rained out, so we did have some rain delays as well.
Okay, thank you. I'll do better on their schedule.
Go ahead, Commissioner Brown.
Mr. David, thank you for all the wonderful work you do with the contractors, calling them. Do you also send them emails as well? So, okay, yeah, so we know that, emails are just, they are a legal document or whatever, so if you send those, but phone calls, you can, that's just a supplement, so I appreciate you for.
And usually whenever I send emails, it is, what would you say, probably 20 people?
Sweet. Oh, yeah, I mean,
And Jane's included in that email, so she has all her evidence.
right, I just appreciate that, but you're doing a wonderful job, appreciate everything you do, thanks, sir.
May I say something?
Go ahead, Commissioner Howard.
Just for a point of reference of what Mr. Deputy mentioned, it'll be kind if we kind of get off of the project projection, if those areas or those individuals within that next phase of the project are notified, just to kind of give them the courtesy of saying, hey, we thought we were going to be here today, but we're not. So if we can just, it can be an email or door to door, but just giving them the courtesy. So, yeah, we won't have to, may keep down coming from commission meetings complaining. But if we just. Right.
Anything else? Yes, Mr. Deputy.
I'm sweeping my gutter, and I wanted to know, does anybody have any update on the street sweeper?
That's not for this meeting, though, really.
Well,
but
we were
okay.
talking with
But
the
you can go ahead.
We
go
were
ahead.
talking about the CRA purchasing one for the CRA district. remember that conversation?
I remember that conversation.
Thank you.
Joe did some research and we did find one that we were looking into, but it's a situation where it's, the cost of those is rather large.
Okay.
So that would have to be further conversation and
Okay.
just trying to figure out how to purchase would happen.
Thank you.
Was it one of the smaller ones?
It was a smaller one,
Okay.
it was still.
Oh, I'm sure it's still expensive. Oh, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Ms. Alls, I just want to, as Commissioner Campbell said, thank you very much to you, the project manager, engineer, Ms. West. You guys, I think we're making good traction with our CRA. You know, even though we are working through a lot of things that happened before you guys got here, I want you to know it is noticeable, and we really, really appreciate all the work that you do.
Thank you.
And I also, with a point of privilege, to say hi to Ms. Kimberly Morgan, who's our VP of Tourism from the Putnam County Chamber. Thank you for being here and following us and making all of us better. So thank you very much.
Does anybody else have anything? If not, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Thank you.